Sarah Williams was heartbroken that the rescue dog she'd saved kept biting her. The newly adopted German Shepherd seemed aggressive toward her, constantly targeting the same spot on her arm. Sarah was starting to think she'd have to return him to the shelter. But when the veterinarian took an X-ray, the expression on his face was something she'd never forget. Was Rocky really aggressive? Or was something completely different happening that no one could have imagined? Sarah Williams had been dreaming of getting a dog for years. At 35, she was a dedicated nurse who had finally managed to transition from the overwhelming demands of full-time hospital work to a more manageable part-time schedule. The change had given her something she'd desperately wanted for years: time to care for a four-legged companion who would make her small apartment feel like a real home. The Metro Animal Rescue Center was bustling with activity on the Saturday morning when Sarah arrived. Families with children moved from cage to cage, pointing excitedly at puppies and young dogs who pressed their noses against the chain-link barriers, hoping to catch the attention of potential adopters. But Sarah found herself drawn to the quieter section of the shelter, where older dogs and those with more challenging backgrounds waited patiently for someone to see their potential. "This is Rocky," said Maria, a volunteer in her 50s who had been working with rescue animals for over a decade. She gestured toward a cage in the back corner where a magnificent German Shepherd sat quietly, observing the world around him with intelligent but cautious eyes. Rocky was 3 years old, with a classic black and tan coat that would have been stunning if it weren't slightly dulled by stress and uncertainty. His ears stood alert, but there was something in his posture that spoke of resignation rather than hope. "He's beautiful," Sarah said softly, approaching the cage slowly. "What's his story?" Maria's expression grew somber. "Rocky was found as a stray about 6 months ago. He was severely malnourished and showed signs of abuse or neglect. We think he might have been abandoned when his family moved, or possibly lost during a traumatic event." Sarah studied Rocky's face, noting the intelligence in his dark brown eyes and the way he seemed to be assessing her just as carefully as she was evaluating him. "Has anyone shown interest in adopting him?" Sarah asked. Maria hesitated. "A few families have met him, but Rocky's been through a lot. He's slow to trust people, and some potential adopters want a dog who's immediately affectionate and social. Rocky needs time to feel safe." As if understanding their conversation, Rocky rose from his sitting position and moved closer to the front of his enclosure. He sniffed the air near Sarah's extended hand, and for a moment, their eyes met with an understanding that transcended words. "I'd like to spend some time with him," Sarah said. "See if we're a good match." Bringing Rocky home proved to be more challenging than Sarah had anticipated. The German Shepherd sat rigidly in the passenger seat of her car, alert but obviously anxious about this new development in his life. His breathing was slightly rapid, and he occasionally whined softly, not in excitement, but in what seemed like nervous uncertainty. Sarah's apartment was modest but comfortable, with large windows that let in plenty of natural light and a small balcony that overlooked a quiet courtyard. She had prepared for Rocky's arrival by purchasing a high-quality dog bed, food and water bowls, and a selection of toys that she hoped might help him feel more at home. "Welcome to your new home, Rocky," Sarah said gently as she opened the apartment door. But Rocky didn't rush in with the enthusiasm Sarah had hoped for. Instead, he stepped carefully across the threshold, his body language suggesting that he was mapping every detail of his new environment for potential threats or escape routes. The German Shepherd immediately positioned himself in a corner of the living room where he could observe all entrances while keeping his back protected against the wall. Sarah recognized this behavior from her work with trauma patients at the hospital. It was the same hypervigilance she saw in people who had experienced significant stress or danger. "Take all the time you need," Sarah told him, settling onto her couch with a book and giving Rocky space to adjust. For the first few hours, Rocky remained in his chosen corner, watching Sarah's every movement with careful attention. She went about her normal evening routine, preparing dinner, checking emails, watching television, while making sure to move slowly and speak in quiet, reassuring tones. As evening approached, Sarah was encouraged to see Rocky begin to relax slightly. His breathing became more normal, and he even showed some interest in the food she had placed nearby. Then, around 9 p.m., something unexpected happened. Rocky rose from his corner and slowly approached Sarah, who was sitting on the couch reading. She looked up from her book, careful not to make any sudden movements that might startle him. "Hey there, buddy," she said softly. "Feeling a little braver?" Rocky continued his approach, moving with the deliberate caution of a dog who had learned to be wary of human interactions. When he reached Sarah's side, he sniffed her arm and leg, seeming to catalog her scent. Then, without warning, Rocky's behavior changed completely. He focused intently on Sarah's left arm, just above her elbow, and before she could react, he bit down on that specific spot. "Ow! Rocky, no!" Sarah exclaimed, pulling her arm away and examining the area where his teeth had made contact with her skin through her sweater. The bite hadn't been particularly hard, Rocky hadn't broken the skin or caused serious injury, but it had been deliberate and targeted. What confused Sarah most was Rocky's expression afterward. He didn't look aggressive or dominant. Instead, he appeared almost concerned. Over the next several days, Rocky's behavior established a troubling pattern that left Sarah increasingly confused and worried. The German Shepherd seemed to be settling into his new home in most respects. He ate regularly, slept peacefully through the night, and even showed occasional signs of playfulness. But several times each day, Rocky would approach Sarah and attempt to bite the same specific spot on her left arm. It was always the same location, always delivered with the same focused intensity, and always followed by the same concerned, almost urgent expression. "Rocky, we need to talk about this biting thing," Sarah said after the fourth incident on Tuesday morning. "I know you've been through a lot, but this behavior has to stop." She tried various training techniques she had researched online, redirecting his attention to toys when he approached her arm, using firm verbal commands, and even briefly separating him when he exhibited the unwanted behavior. Nothing seemed to discourage Rocky's fixation on that particular spot. Sarah called her friend Lisa, a fellow nurse who had experience with animal-assisted therapy programs at the hospital. "It sounds like Rocky might have some behavioral issues related to his trauma," Lisa suggested. "Some rescue dogs develop unusual coping mechanisms or compulsive behaviors. Have you considered working with a professional dog trainer or animal behaviorist?" "I've thought about it," Sarah replied, watching Rocky from across the room. The German Shepherd was lying on his bed, but his eyes were focused on her with that same intense, concerned expression she'd come to recognize. "But it's so specific, Lisa. He's not generally aggressive. He only targets this one spot on my arm." "That is strange," Lisa agreed. "Maybe there's something about that area that triggers him. A scent, or a texture, or something from his past." That evening, Sarah decided to observe Rocky's behavior more systematically. She sat in different chairs, wore different clothes, and even changed her perfume to see if any environmental factors might be influencing his actions. But regardless of these variables, Rocky's focus remained unchanged. He would approach her, sniff carefully around her left arm, and then gently but persistently bite the same area just above her elbow. "What are you trying to tell me, boy?" Sarah asked, looking into Rocky's intelligent brown eyes. "What is it about this spot that has you so concerned?" As the days passed, Rocky's fixation on Sarah's arm began to escalate in frequency and intensity. What had initially been occasional incidents became daily occurrences, and Sarah noticed that Rocky seemed increasingly agitated when she prevented him from accessing the target area. The German Shepherd would pace around her chair, whining softly and pawing at her arm when she kept it out of his reach. His body language suggested frustration rather than aggression, as if he were trying to communicate something urgent that she wasn't understanding. Sarah found herself becoming increasingly worried about the situation. She had rescued Rocky hoping to provide him with a loving home and to gain a loyal companion for herself. Instead, she was dealing with a dog whose behavior was becoming more problematic each day. "I don't know what to do," she confided to her neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, an elderly woman who had raised dogs for most of her life. "Rocky seems like a sweet dog in every other way, but this biting behavior is getting worse." Mrs. Patterson, who was in her 70s and had the kind of practical wisdom that comes from decades of experience with animals, listened thoughtfully to Sarah's description of Rocky's behavior. "Honey, that doesn't sound like typical aggressive behavior to me," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Dogs usually bite out of fear, dominance, or protective instincts. But what you're describing sounds almost purposeful. Like he's trying to get your attention about something specific." "But what could he be trying to tell me?" Sarah asked. "It's just my arm. There's nothing special about that spot." Mrs. Patterson shrugged. "Sometimes animals know things we don't. My late husband used to say that dogs can sense things humans miss. Maybe Rocky's trying to warn you about something." That night, Sarah lay in bed thinking about Mrs. Patterson's words. She absently rubbed the area on her arm that Rocky kept targeting, trying to detect anything unusual. The skin felt normal to her, no pain, no lumps, no sensitivity. But Rocky's persistent focus on that exact location was becoming impossible to ignore. By the end of Rocky's second week with Sarah, she knew she needed professional help. The biting incidents were occurring multiple times per day, and Rocky was becoming visibly distressed when prevented from accessing Sarah's arm. Dr. Amanda Foster had been practicing veterinary medicine for over 15 years and had developed a reputation for working effectively with traumatized rescue animals. Her clinic, Westside Animal Hospital, was known for its compassionate approach to behavioral issues in pets with difficult backgrounds. "Tell me about Rocky's history and the specific behaviors you're concerned about," Dr. Foster said as she began her examination of the German Shepherd. Sarah provided a detailed account of Rocky's background and his persistent fixation on her left arm. Dr. Foster listened carefully while conducting a thorough physical examination of the dog. "Rocky appears to be in excellent physical health," Dr. Foster concluded. "His weight is good, his coat is improving with proper nutrition, and I don't see any signs of pain or discomfort that might be causing behavioral issues." "Then why does he keep biting the same spot on my arm?" Sarah asked. "It's becoming obsessive." Dr. Foster paused in her examination, considering Sarah's question carefully. "Sarah, what you're describing is very specific targeting behavior. It's not typical of dominance-based or fear-based aggression. Rocky seems to be focusing on a particular area of your body with deliberate intent." "What does that mean?" "Dogs have incredibly sophisticated senses of smell and can detect chemical changes in the human body that we're completely unaware of. There have been documented cases of dogs identifying medical conditions in their owners: cancer, seizures, diabetic episodes, infections." Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. "Are you suggesting that Rocky might be detecting some kind of health problem?" "It's possible. The fact that he's consistently targeting the same specific location suggests he might be sensing something unusual in that area. Have you noticed anything different about that part of your arm? Any changes in sensation, appearance, or comfort?" Sarah shook her head. "Nothing at all. It feels completely normal to me." Dr. Foster nodded thoughtfully. "I'd recommend having your doctor examine that area. It might be worth getting a professional medical opinion, especially given how persistent and specific Rocky's behavior has been." Dr. James Miller had been Sarah's family physician for over 5 years. He was a thorough, methodical doctor who took his patients' concerns seriously, even when they seemed unusual. "So your rescue dog keeps biting the same spot on your arm?" Dr. Miller asked, reviewing the notes Sarah had provided about Rocky's behavior. "I know it sounds crazy," Sarah said, "but the veterinarian suggested that Rocky might be detecting something I can't sense myself." Dr. Miller had Sarah remove her sweater so he could examine her left arm. He palpated the area Rocky had been targeting, applying gentle pressure and checking for any abnormalities. Interesting, he murmured after a few minutes of careful examination. There is a very small mass here. It's quite subtle, I can understand why you wouldn't have noticed it yourself. Sarah's heart began to race. A mass? What kind of mass? I can feel a small, firm lump just beneath the skin surface. It's maybe the size of a marble, possibly smaller. When did you first notice Rocky focusing on this area? Almost from the day I brought him home 2 weeks ago. He's been consistently targeting this exact spot. Dr. Miller continued his examination, feeling around the surrounding tissue and checking Sarah's lymph nodes. I'd like to get some imaging of this area. Let's start with an X-ray to see what we're dealing with. Sarah felt her world tilting slightly. The idea that Rocky might have been trying to alert her to a serious health problem was both terrifying and incredible. Dr. Miller, is it possible that a dog could detect something like this before a human would notice symptoms? Absolutely, he replied. Dogs can smell chemical changes in the body that indicate disease processes. Their olfactory capabilities are thousands of times more sensitive than ours. There have been studies showing dogs can detect certain types of cancer, infections, and other medical conditions. The radiology department at St. Mary's Hospital was busy that afternoon, but Dr. Miller had managed to arrange for Sarah's X-ray to be taken on an urgent basis. Sarah sat in the waiting area, her mind racing with possibilities she didn't want to consider. Rocky was at home, but Sarah found herself thinking about his behavior over the past 2 weeks with new understanding. What she had interpreted as problematic aggression might actually have been desperate attempts to communicate a warning about her health. When Dr. Miller returned with the X-ray results, his expression was serious but not alarmed. Sarah, the imaging shows a defined mass in the soft tissue of your upper arm. It's approximately 2 centimeters in diameter and appears to be well encapsulated. Sarah's mouth went dry. What does that mean? Is it cancer? We won't know definitively until we do a biopsy, but the characteristics I'm seeing suggest it could be a tumor. The good news is that it appears to be caught very early. Most people wouldn't be able to detect a mass this size through self-examination. Dr. Miller pulled up the X-ray images on his computer screen, pointing to a shadowy area that was clearly visible once Sarah knew what to look for. If this is indeed a tumor, early detection is crucial for successful treatment. The fact that your dog identified this before you had any symptoms is remarkable. Sarah stared at the X-ray image, thinking about Rocky's persistent, urgent attempts to draw her attention to this exact location. So Rocky was trying to save my life? It certainly appears that way. Dogs have been known to detect cancers that are undetectable to conventional examination. Your Rocky may have just given you the most important gift possible, the gift of early diagnosis. The 3 days Sarah had to wait for her biopsy results were among the longest of her life. She found herself looking at Rocky with a mixture of gratitude and amazement. The German Shepherd seemed to sense that his message had finally been received and understood. His obsessive biting behavior had stopped completely once Sarah returned from her doctor's appointment. Instead of targeting her arm, Rocky now positioned himself close to Sarah whenever she sat down, resting his head gently near the area he had been so concerned about. His demeanor was calm but watchful, as if he were monitoring her condition. When Dr. Miller called with the biopsy results, Sarah was sitting in her living room with Rocky lying peacefully beside her. "Sarah, I have your results," Dr. Miller said. "The mass is indeed malignant, it's a soft tissue sarcoma. However, it's very early stage, and the margins appear to be well defined." Sarah felt her world tilt, but Dr. Miller's voice remained calm and reassuring. The good news is that this type of tumor responds very well to surgical removal when caught early. Because Rocky alerted you to this before the tumor had a chance to grow or spread, your prognosis is excellent. So Rocky really did save my life. Without question. If this tumor had continued to grow undetected, it would have eventually become much more serious and potentially life-threatening. Rocky's early detection has likely prevented that outcome entirely. Sarah looked down at Rocky, who seemed to understand the gravity of their conversation. His intelligent brown eyes met hers with an expression that seemed almost proud. "When can we schedule the surgery?" Sarah asked. "I'd like to get you to an oncologist within the next 2 weeks. Dr. Sarah Chen at the Regional Cancer Center specializes in soft tissue sarcomas. She'll be able to remove the tumor completely and discuss any follow-up care that might be needed." The surgery took place on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks after Rocky's initial diagnosis. The procedure was successful, with Dr. Chen able to remove the entire tumor with clean margins, meaning no cancerous tissue was left behind. During Sarah's recovery, Rocky transformed from a rescue dog with behavioral problems into the most attentive companion she could have imagined. He never left her side during her convalescence, positioning himself near her bed or chair and seeming to monitor her healing progress with the same intensity he had shown when alerting her to the tumor. "Rocky's behavior has completely changed," Sarah told Dr. Foster during a follow-up veterinary visit. "It's like he's a different dog. He's calm, affectionate, and completely focused on taking care of me." Dr. Foster smiled as she observed Rocky's gentle, protective behavior around Sarah. "Rocky has completed his mission. He identified a threat to your health and persisted until you took action to address it. Now he's transitioning into a supportive role during your recovery. It's incredible that he knew something was wrong before I had any symptoms at all." Dogs can detect cancer through scent molecules called volatile organic compounds that are released by abnormal cells. Rocky was essentially performing the same function as a trained medical detection dog, but using purely instinctual behavior. Dr. Foster continued, "What makes Rocky's case particularly remarkable is that he had no formal training in medical detection. His protective instincts and natural sensitivity allowed him to identify your tumor and communicate his concern in the only way he knew how." Word of Rocky's diagnostic abilities spread quickly through the local medical and veterinary communities. Dr. Miller presented Sarah and Rocky's case at a regional medical conference, where it generated significant interest among physicians studying the potential of canine medical detection. Dr. Maria Santos, a researcher from the University Medical Center who specialized in animal-assisted medicine, contacted Sarah about participating in a study of dogs' natural abilities to detect medical conditions. Rocky's case is particularly fascinating because he demonstrated advanced detection abilities without any formal training, Dr. Santos explained during their phone conversation. Most medical detection dogs undergo months of specialized training. Rocky's natural instincts allowed him to identify your tumor and persist in trying to communicate his findings. Sarah was intrigued by the possibility of contributing to medical research that could help other patients receive early diagnosis of serious conditions. "Would this help other people in situations like mine?" she asked. "Absolutely. Understanding how dogs like Rocky naturally detect medical conditions could help us develop better training programs for medical detection dogs and potentially save countless lives through earlier diagnosis." Sarah looked at Rocky, who was lying peacefully at her feet. "I think Rocky would be honored to help other people the way he helped me." 6 months after her surgery, Sarah was declared cancer-free with an excellent prognosis. The experience had fundamentally changed her perspective on life, health, and the incredible bond between humans and animals. She and Rocky began volunteering with Dr. Santos's research program, helping to train other dogs in medical detection techniques and sharing their story with medical professionals and pet owners. "Rocky didn't just save my life," Sarah would tell audiences at medical conferences and animal rescue events. "He taught me about the incredible intelligence and loyalty that rescue animals possess. He showed me that sometimes the dogs we think have behavioral problems are actually trying to help us in ways we don't understand." Rocky seemed to thrive in his new role as an ambassador for the capabilities of rescue dogs. His gentle, intuitive nature made him an excellent therapy dog, and his remarkable story inspired many people to consider adopting older or traumatized animals from shelters. "Before Rocky, I thought I was rescuing him," Sarah often said. "But it turned out that he was rescuing me." 2 years after Rocky's life-saving diagnosis, Sarah and Rocky had become a team in every sense of the word. Sarah had returned to full-time nursing work, but now she also spent time educating medical professionals about the potential of animal-assisted diagnosis and advocating for rescue dog adoption. Rocky had evolved from a traumatized shelter dog into a confident, purposeful companion whose intelligence and sensitivity continued to amaze everyone who met him. He had been certified as a therapy dog and regularly visited hospitals and medical facilities, bringing comfort to patients while demonstrating the remarkable capabilities of rescue animals. "People always ask me if Rocky still has his diagnostic abilities," Sarah would tell visitors. "The truth is, I hope I never need to find out again. But knowing that he's watching over my health gives me a sense of security I never had before." Rocky's transformation from a shelter dog with behavioral problems to a life-saving medical detector had inspired changes in how the Metro Animal Rescue Center evaluated and presented dogs with unusual behaviors. Staff now paid closer attention to dogs who exhibited specific, persistent behavioral patterns, recognizing that what appeared to be problematic behavior might actually be attempts to communicate important information. Sarah often reflected on how easily she might have returned Rocky to the shelter if she hadn't persisted in understanding his behavior. The thought that she could have missed both the opportunity to save her own life and to provide Rocky with the loving home he deserved was sobering. "Rocky taught me that sometimes the greatest gifts come from the most unexpected sources," Sarah would say. "He also taught me that love and loyalty can manifest in ways we don't always immediately understand." As she watched Rocky peacefully sleeping in his favorite spot by the window, Sarah felt a profound sense of gratitude not just for her recovered health, but for the incredible bond she shared with the dog who had literally saved her life through his unwavering determination to protect her. Their story had become a testament to the remarkable intelligence, loyalty, and life-saving potential of rescue animals, and a reminder that sometimes the dogs we think need saving are actually the ones doing the rescuing. If Rocky's incredible life-saving instincts and medical detection abilities inspired you, please hit that like button and subscribe to Heart Animal Stories. Every like helps us share more remarkable stories of rescue dogs whose intelligence and protective instincts save their families from hidden health dangers. Don't forget to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest stories of medical alert animals, early disease detection, and the extraordinary ways rescue dogs prove their worth beyond measure. Share this video with someone who believes in the power of animal rescue and second chances, and let us know in the comments, has your pet ever detected health issues before you were aware of them? We'd love to hear about your own experiences with pets' medical intuition. Until next time, remember, sometimes the dogs we rescue end up rescuing us in ways we never imagined. Thank you for being part of our Heart Animal Stories family and celebrating the incredible life-saving abilities of our four-legged heroes.